Hey guys, so welcome to the next episode of my video blog. Right off the bat, I'm just going to be honest and say I do have some notes just off screen here, so forgive me if I'm always looking over here, but it is for your benefit. So first of all, there's going to be a couple of things, let's call them housekeeping things. Number one, I did say I was going to be recording these live on Facebook, but I just don't like the pressure of doing it live, so they're going to be pre-recorded. Two, you probably noticed that I've titled this vlog Shut Up Already, because that's how I feel about them when I'm recording them like this, because I'm real aware that I do still ramble a lot, so I'm trying hard to stay on point. Next, hosting. This is on Facebook, like I said, because they do archive stuff, which is nice. It's there for forever. But somebody did request that I put it on YouTube as well, which I wanted to do, and I'm having a lot of issues with uploading just straight from my phone. A lot of them take like half a dozen tries to not get an error message, but I do have the first two, the intro and the first episode, up on YouTube. So if you're not into the Facebook thing, then for sure hit me back up on YouTube. There's lots of old videos on there too you can go back and laugh at. Also, Instagram TV just launched, but they make you record the other way, up and down, portrait style. And these, like for YouTube and Facebook, I record properly, landscape style. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that with Instagram. They're just trying to be different or whatever, but I'll have to do something different maybe for Instagram. So if you are there, then keep an eye out for that in the future. I'll have to figure out something to do on there. If you're not on Instagram, join up and hit me up. Lots of photos and different things. Lots of sales, raffles, stuff like that go on Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so getting into it. Today I wanted to talk about design. It's kind of the next logical step in knife making, is designing your knife. Like I said in the last one, draw lots and lots of knives. It's the easiest and cheapest and quickest way to come up with a knife design. So yeah, do lots of that, and do lots of looking at what other people are making, and maybe try and replicate some of that, just to kind of get an idea of why they got to where they are with their designs, what they were going for, what different shapes are designed for. Do the legwork. Getting right into it, let's talk about a couple different things. First of all, as far as handles go, there are two main different types of handles. You'll have your full tang and your hidden tang. Here's two different blades that I'm working on. The tang is the part of the blade that's inside the handle, the steel that's inside the handle. So this is a full tang, where the full profile is all the way around the knife, and when the handle's done, you will see the steel all the way around the handle. That's a full tang. There's a little more weight in the handle because it's full of steel, and it's also stronger because it's all one piece of steel. Hidden tang is just like it sounds. The tang is this little, it's also called stick tang or rat tail tang, and it just goes inside the handle and stops before the end of the handle. There's also through tang, which comes out the end. There's lots of different varieties of these, but this one is a little lighter weight in the handle because there's less steel there, obviously, and it allows you to get a little more creative with things like a guard or different materials without having to split them in half to fit on either side of a full tang handle. So those are the two kind of varieties, and you're going to want to decide which one you want to do based on some of those options. For me, I found that the full tang for beginning was easier because your profile and your two-dimensional profile is already determined by your steel. So then when you go to shape your handle, you just come around, find the tang all the way around, and then you worry about this way. With the hidden tang, you got to be drilling holes, filing out your guards. You want your guard to fit nice and tight and seamless, so you can't see any gaps, and you can't tell that there's a hole there that the steel is going through. You want this to end up really clean and professional, so you have to be really aware of that. Moving on to, let's just go right into, we'll stick with handle designs. Me personally, I like to go ergonomic. Here's a couple of different styles of kitchen knives. For mine, even with my hunting knives and stuff, I really like to kind of stay ergonomic. And what that means is the natural shape of your hand when you close it. Basically, if you took a piece of putty and you squeezed your hand around it, the shape of that putty, you try to replicate that in the shape of your knife. So you end up with what's called a palm swell. Usually you get a little bit of fall off up here and a little bit of butt just for grip. And that's kind of the shape of your hand, roughly, when you squeeze it like that. And so that's just comfortable. There are lots of guys who prefer like just a nice straight handle like that. Even a really squared or boxy scales around that, just for indexing. Like you could really feel where the handle is sitting in your hand. That also comes from axe handles, hammer handles and stuff like that are octagon. You can really tell where that handle's sitting in your hand without having to look at it. But for me personally, like I say, I tend to go with the more ergonomic, and when I'm shaping my handles, they kind of follow that same general shape. Same goes with a hidden tang when you go to shape that thing too. Like I say, I like to stay ergonomic, but we're talking about design right now. So let's go right to blade design, and we'll stick with I'm trying to keep this thing short so it doesn't kill me on trying to upload. Here's a couple of kitchen knives. They look pretty similar, same sort of length, but when you lay one over top of the other, let's do it this way so you can see, and I line up the heel and the tip, you can see that the shape and the design is very different. These are two different styles of kitchen knife. One is the German design, which is a little more crap. I don't want to screw this up. I'm not that technical about these. I believe this is the French one, and it's a lot flatter. There's a long flat, and then it curves at the end. Whereas the German design is kind of just a long curve. I hope I didn't get those two backwards, but either way, it's just a different personal preference of how the blade lands on a cutting board and rocks, and what you're using it for, the purpose of it. That's the biggest thing when you're thinking about the design of your blade and your handle too, is the purpose of it, what you want that thing to do, and then you design it to be the most effective possible to do that task. This is another kitchen style knife, almost entirely just flat. This is very Japanese style. I put a little bit of rock in the end, but it's just pretty much flat with a little bit of kick there. So there's lots of different designs. Like I say, jump online, look at all different kind of shapes. A lot of places too, you'll find a little write-ups on why knives are designed the way they are. One huge thing you want to think about too is balance. Different knives have different balance points for different reasons. Mostly it comes with your grip. And when we're talking about balance, we're talking about how the knife, this is one of my templates, how the knife sits, where it sits, when it's finished, with a handle on it and everything. Because that spot is going to be where you grip the knife, and you want to have the same amount of weight behind the blade as you do in the blade, so that it doesn't feel really weird and awkward and balanced one way or the other. If you have a super heavy handle or super heavy blade and a light handle, which is where you run into issues with a hidden tang knife, then it just feels like it's really weighted forward. And like this one, if you got someone who wants a great big badass 8-inch Bowie knife or Bowie knife, but they want a hidden tang handle, now you've got all this weight in the front, and when you're holding this thing, when it's finished, it just feels like super heavy in the front end, and it's just kind of a cumbersome and unwieldy. So you got to come up with a way to weight the handle or take some weight out of the blade. A couple different ways to do that too. So you want balance, and with a hunting knife, you typically want your balance right here, because that's where your main grip is. Your index finger and your thumb are holding that mostly, and the rest is just all kind of for control. But that's where you're gripping that knife. And so if your balance is there, then it just feels balanced. You can just hold this thing with two hands or two fingers if you wanted to. So then it feels right. It feels like an extension of your hand. With a kitchen knife, you typically want your balance point to be somewhere up here, ahead of the handle, because you may not be aware of this, but this is kind of the way that I design my handles too, is the way to grip it is the pinch grip. So you're grabbing it, pinching it way ahead of the handle, and the rest of their fingers just kind of fall in, and then that's just called the pinch grip. So it's not like back here like total motorcycle death grip. It's the pinch grip. And you look at a lot of professional chefs, this is how they're holding their knives, is that pinch grip. And like I say, this is all just there for control, and that's where you want your balance point, is right there. And like I say, it takes some practice to get used to thinning out your blade and taking enough material off to compensate for how short your handle is and how much weight you're going to have there, and you really don't know until the handle's shaped and is all done. So it takes, like I say, it takes some practice to kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to need to add some weight to the handle or take some off the blade or whatever to get that balance just right. Now, when you're talking about handle versus blade, here are two different knives. This is one I make a lot called the Ranger, and this one is somebody asked me to make a smaller version of it, so I did, and I call it the Scout. And his request was a shorter blade. So the Ranger is a 5-inch blade, he wanted a 4-inch. So I shortened the blade, but I also shortened the handle to kind of match. It's not just for balance either, it's also aesthetic. If you put this short blade on top of this, if you can kind of picture it, on this giant handle, then it just doesn't look right even. So aesthetics are a big deal too. Let me just make sure I keep looking at my notes so I'm not forgetting anything. You want your knife to be aesthetically pleasing, because then it looks nice in a photo. Someone wants to buy it. Also, your end user wants to pick it up and use it, because that's why we put fancy stuff on the handle, because it looks nice, right? So if you're gonna modify your blade, think about modifying the handle to kind of suit, because they just look correct, I guess. Short handle, short blade. It's still comfortable, it still works fine. You can still, even with a hunting knife, if a lot of guys are skinning, they've got all kinds of different grips too, right? They'll hold it way up here, or they'll do the pinch grip, or they'll run their finger up the knife, or whatever. So kind of consider that when you're considering how to shape your handle. Lots of different grips. You don't want to be limiting your customer. Also consider your material usage. What I mean by that is a lot of steel stock will come in widths. So if you're not forging and you're just buying straight flat steel stock, it's going to come in a lot of widths. So 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch. Those are kind of your standard widths by the foot or the inch. And so you don't want to design something that's going to waste a lot of steel. So if you come up with just a real weird convoluted shape, and it's not and you're, like I say, you're not forging, you're just cutting it out of that, just be aware of wasted material, because steel, it's not real cheap, blade steel, and it's getting more expensive for those of us north of the border. But just consider that. Consider your material usage. Also, ease of creation. Don't, especially if you're doing this to try to make some money, like production style, try to keep things simple and consider your tooling, because you don't want to make some super convoluted, crazy shape with, you got to like file for hours to get these little intricate details in it, because if you have to, you want to make it repeatable. You don't want to make something that you're going to have to, you hate having to make again, because if somebody wants to buy another one, you got to make another one, or someone wants 10 of them for a wedding or whatever, you don't want to have to dread having to make that thing again. So try to keep it simple. Know your tooling. You know, if you got a 2-inch wheel on your grinder, maybe design something that you can use that 2-inch radius for, or if you've got a 1/2-inch radius wheel or whatever, or if you got a Dremel, consider having to redo it. So just, keeping it simple really helps a lot too. So blade shape real quick, let's talk about quickly for blade shapes for hunting knives too. When you're designing these things, there's lots of different versions of that. This one's kind of like that French style chef knife. It's just kind of sweepy, just a short little flat there. Again, the design is for the function. This is the ever popular bow hunter. A lot of flat and then some belly here. Great for skinning, but also a great utility shape. Having that long flat there, it's just great for lots of different things. Tips, you can have a clip, you can have the drop point. There's all kinds of different designs of these, so you'll have to do a little bit of research on that, but there's lots of different tip shapes. This one is the Badger. Lots of belly, generally designed for a skinning knife. It's just another application, specifically kind of designed for that application. Again, the handle is designed as a skinning knife, but also comfortable as like a utility sort of hold or whatever. Again, not limiting anybody. So that's kind of the real sort of basic run through on design. That's all my notes. That's everything I sort of wanted to talk about for design. Just keep it simple, keep it comfortable, keep it looking like you want to pick that thing up and hold it, and you should be successful. And draw lots, make ugly knives, and then try to make them better. That's just how we grow as knife makers. So yeah, have fun with it. Draw all kinds of crazy stuff. I got a stack of really stupid designs, but who cares? You start drawing and you keep drawing and you come up with all these really silly designs, but whatever, it's just paper and pencil. It's cheap and easy. So yeah, do lots of drawing, and hopefully you come up with something you like. All right, thanks a lot.